Yeah, we talking about the nun.
The Nun. So today we're talking about The Nun. The Nun takes place in 1952 in the secluded Abbey of St. Carta in Romania. Side note, St. Carta is an actual monastery, ancient monastery, in Transylvania, Romania. The monastery was probably founded sometime between 1202 and 1206 by monks from Igris Abbey.
Or Dracula.
That's, Transylvania. Leave a like or a comment if you want to see us talk about
10 likes.
Transylvania.
10 viewers again.
No. So we also saw a few posts online suggesting that the real St. Carta may have paranormal activity, but we're not like Ghostbusters, so we don't know.
Got the
We don't
money
have
to
that
go there.
equipment.
And your passport expired.
Two nuns appear in front of a closed door with the text reading "God ends here." Behind it, an unseen evil force. We see two nuns, first of all. So the older nun gives Sister Victoria an ancient-looking key relic, and then she somehow gets dragged through that same door. Sister Victoria, the one who's living, not the one that got dragged through the door, she takes the key relic and runs away, eventually hanging herself outside the front of the abbey to escape the evil and, as we learn later, but we'll cut to the chase right now, avoid possession.
Yeah, that's pretty much why she did it. She's like, if I die, the nun can't possess anyone, and the demon cannot come into this earth. It's kind
of like a sacrifice,
this world,
then. Yeah.
This dimension.
I don't know. She maybe didn't make the right choice, though, because, the nun happened.
So now when she died, she's hanging outside. She's chilling. This other Frenchie guy, our first main character, Frenchie, he sees this dead nun hanging outside for the Abbey. He's like, holy shit, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? He's a French Canadian, so that's pretty,
Actually, clarify, he's a French Canadian farmer.
Oh, he's
so
a
the
French
reason
Canadian
he's
farmer.
at the Abbey is to drop off food for the nuns in the first place.
So he goes there every month or two, drops off food for them, because the nuns, I don't know why, whatever, they don't like to get their own food.
I don't
they have
think
this
they
French
can leave
Canadian
the Abbey.
guy bring it to him. He tells that he finds a dead nun hanging. That news goes all the way up to the Vatican.
The Vatican.
So the Vatican, what they do, they summon our second character, Father Burke.
He was chosen to investigate the nun's death due to his vast experience with demonic entities. His job is basically to see if the grounds are still holy. Our final and most important character, because if we cut to the chase here, Father Burke, I don't think he's in the Nun too, but Irene is, so... Our final character, Irene. If you haven't watched the movie by now, it's been out for a long time. Go watch the movie before you watch this video. You should have just watched the movie before you watched this video in the first place.
Don't be mean to our viewers.
We have like 2 viewers, maybe. Our final character, Irene, is also chosen by the Vatican for a special quote-unquote purpose, often seeing visions and predicting events. Irene is a nun in her novitiate, and that basically means that she has not taken her vows yet. Side note, it's theorized in the Conjuring universe.
She didn't take the dare pledge?
She's not part of SWAT.
Drugs.
You ever heard of SWAT? Students
SWAT?
Working Against Tobacco.
No.
Maybe that was like
I heard dare.
Yeah, that's like an up north thing. I think SWAT is like a south thing. Anyways, nonetheless, it's theorized in the Conjuring universe that Irene and Lorraine Warren might somehow be related.
You know how Lorraine sees stuff?
She has a lot of visions, similarly. If you watch the other Conjuring movies, she's also pretty haunted by Valak, and
if you see visions, you might be related to Lorraine.
If you see visions, you might want to visit your doctor.
Now, Father Burke and Irene connect. They go on this adventure, and they're going to Romania to this French-Canadian Frenchie and see where he found this dead nun.
Father Burke is seen completing a crossword along the way.
Yeah, he's doing a crossword
It might
puzzle.
be like, it's like a little play on words later on in the movie. There's some emphasis on the word deliveries within
You know how your
crossword
teacher says,
puzzle.
keep this in mind, it might be on the test?
It was on the test.
Keep this in mind. Wink.
Or when they say, like, A and B are not good answers, but C is looking pretty good. Yeah.
This movie's an exam. On the way to the Abbey, they pretty much pass through a bunch of crosses. Everyone's asking what these crosses are, and just to keep the evil inside the Abbey. There's something wrong here. Everyone knows it, and so they're just trying to keep everyone in there, which is kind of funny. So, like, the nuns are there, but I guess they're holy, so they can be there.
That's why I was going to talk about the plot hole later on. There's a little plot hole with this whole thing, but...
It's to contain the curse. Maybe that's what the nun can't get out. With all these crosses.
There's a lot of backstory in the nun. Really leads nowhere, but nonetheless.
So they end up to the Abbey, and then Father Burke's like, where'd you find this nun? So they go to this ice room, or wherever Frenchie delivers all his food. And the nun is sitting up, like this. Like you, right now.
No, I don't think she's crossing her legs like that, but she is like sitting in a very stiff, upright position, and obviously Frenchie is like, that's not how I left her.
Yeah, he left her laying down, as you would do to a normal dead nun body you find.
Any sort of body, I don't think you would stand it up, but...
Father Burke's like, nah, it'll be fine. This ain't nothing. This ain't no ghost. This ain't no unholiness. The nun, pretty much a body, it does convulsions. I'm not a doctor either, but apparently bodies can sit upright.
No.
According to Father Burke.
So bodies, like, I'm not a doctor either, but I've seen a lot of movies and I'm pretty smart in general. Bodies can move after people die, but it's mostly like natural function and settling of the muscles. Like sometimes their lungs can have air in them. It can come out. But nothing like they can't get upright and sit in an upright position. But
so he still didn't have any red flags, pretty much. That's what it looks like.
Three attempt to give the nun a proper burial.
Yeah.
And they come across like the cemetery. So in the cemetery is again pretty important. The nun is heavy on foreshadowing things, like these bells on the tombstones. And they kind of give this backstory that historically when people were buried alive, they used to kind of keep those bells there so that if you were buried alive, you'd be able to get the attention of like a passerby to dig you up.
Either we watch this movie a lot, or like the foreshadowing is very easy to catch
up.
That's
obvious,
one thing I noticed.
Yeah.
They go back to the Abbey. They go through the main hallway. They're looking for the abbess, and this is where he meets her. She is kind of sketchy. She's all dark. You can barely see this lady. And she's sitting down and talking in a raspy voice. You can tell this lady is not the abbess. I can tell this lady's not the abbess. These three people can't.
Questions the three of them on the burial they just did. Kind of berates them for it. She eerily mentions that the gate will be closing shortly. Whatever that means. As they settle in for the night, we see Frenchie outside alone, where he encounters a nun dragging a rope in the distance. Kind of similar to what he discovered earlier on in the day. Suddenly, the hanging nun drops down onto Frenchie, and we get our first good look at the demon, Valak. Cut back to Irene and Father Burke, who are now just discussing Bishop Foran. So Irene mentions that Bishop Foran helped her when she was younger. She had plenty of visions. Every vision she had left her with a specific quote in her head. Mary points the way. So Father Burke, again, shares his past. He mentions his first exorcism he performed on a boy named Daniel. Father Burke seems a bit haunted by Daniel.
Daniel.
Because
why are you haunting this boy, bro?
He sustained life-threatening injuries from that exorcism, so that left him a little bit scarred.
Throughout the movie, you'll see he recalls back to that. Valak he's very good at playing tricks. He manipulates their brains into their greatest fears and just kind of throws them off balance as he takes control of them. So they end up going to sleep. And then in the middle of the night, Father Burke hears something. It's a little radio. It lights up and hears a noise. He gets up, he sees this figure, a little boy, and because he's a priest, he's very intrigued.
I don't know if that's why he's intrigued. I think anybody would be intrigued if they woke up in the middle of the night and saw somebody walking around where there's not supposed to be like kids.
But with a boy, it's like a next level intriguement for them.
Oh my god, I just got it. I didn't even get it before then.
So what are you doing? He's like, oh, he walking outside in the woods,
my god,
clear,
that's your
no
motivation for every character in this movie.
Okay, well, he sees a boy walking outside. He also looks like that boy, damn Daniel.
A large
we
snake,
can read.
symbolic of Valak, squirms out of the boy's mouth and knocks Father Burke into an empty grave, trapping him and leaving him anxiously ringing the tombstone bell for help.
Ooh.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, 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 ding.
No, that's what we were talking about before. So Irene appears to wake up. We don't know how. I don't know if she has supersonic hearing and she can hear Father Burke asking for help.
She's having nightmares and...
She wakes up and we see Valak stalking her through the hallway. Irene approaches a large mirror and she sees this huge shadowy figure growing behind her. She glances back to the mirror to find none other than Valak in her reflection.
None other than the nun.
Irene snaps back to reality when she hears the father screaming for help.
There goes gravity.
Oh my god.
Why does she snap back?
She ventures to the cemetery and finds all of the bells ringing on the tombstone. She recalls the phrase "Mary points the way," which helps her find Father and saves him from the evil.
It's kind of funny though, like the Mary's pointing the way and like all of them are ringing. I guess she knows the general direction and she takes the best guess.
She's special. I don't know. They said she's special. Mary points the way.
But as she's digging out, Mr. Father Burke, he's having his own thing inside of a coffin, which is kind of hilarious. He's hearing some noises. Something's going on. So he holds up his lantern or his flashlight, his lighter. He starts to see what's happening. He doesn't see it. And then out of nowhere, hands come behind his head and they're pulling him down.
And all he has to say after all of that is, there's a powerful evil presence in this place.
Yeah, he gets saved really fast.
Flash forward to Irene. They arrive on the steps of Abbey where there's fresh blood on the steps. The doors to the Abbey open and Irene heads out to find the abbess. But before she departs, Father gives her the key relic found from the body of Sister Victoria. Irene then stumbles upon a sister in prayer and tries to get her attention, but the Sister Juana, stops her and explains that the sisters have been practicing perpetual adoration and constant vigil for centuries. Basically, they take shifts to pray.
Yeah, they try to help hold the evil. It's kind of perceived that there's some evil presence in you already, and these nuns are kind of protecting it.
I think they're trying to keep it from escaping, so they're doing their due diligence as like more religious, holy sort of people to protect like the civilians in the towns nearby so they don't have to experience this extreme amount of evil. Meanwhile, Father Burke discovers a book entry detailing Valak, the Defiler, the Profane, the Marquis of Snakes. We go back to Irene, who's asking Sister Juana for sort of a history of the Abbey. So she kind of wants to figure out why this evil was placed here, what they can do to protect, I guess, the rest of the town from the evil. Sister Juana goes and details the history. So the Abbey was built for the Duke of St. Carta, a fan of the occult. The Duke summoned the demon through a rift in the catacombs, but was then killed by Christian knights, who sealed the rift with a vial filled with the blood of Christ. Perpetual adoration has kept the evil at bay for centuries until the bombs of World War II reopened the rift and released Valak.
Humans.
So Sister Juana then takes this opportunity to mention the sightings of an evil cloaked presence that takes the form of a nun, mentioning that the demon has been sighted within the Abbey. Basically tells Irene that she must stay the night, even though she hasn't taken her vows yet and technically can't stay in a monastery, just because the gates have been closed for the night. Sister Juana basically locks Irene into the bedroom to keep her safe.
So Irene goes to sleep and she has another nightmare, and nightmare ends with Mary points the way. This is a very key topic in this movie. And she noticed something in her bedroom. It's kind of like this weird figure walking around, so she goes to investigate. She leaves her bedroom and she sees Sister Juana in the hallway. She follows her down to this door. God ends here. It's a scary door. She goes up to the door and she puts the key relic inside and she opens it. This is a big reveal of the nun. Mr. Valak, he was sucking her through the door. He wants her life force, but she grabs onto the key relic. And when she grabs onto the key relic, he can't suck her. So something about this key relic is weird.
I don't know if this is the key relic or just Irene herself. I think like Lorraine and what's her name? Irene have this same sort of essence. Like you'll see it in the later on movies why they can't these demonic entities can't touch them. But I don't think it's necessarily due to the relic. I didn't think about that. I think it's due to like who they are and who they came from, like ancestor wise. I
Yeah.
think there's some tie in the ancestry between, like, Valak may have haunted Ed and Lorraine, or I guess Lorraine and Irene's family for any amount of time, and I think they sort of have some sort of immunity. There has to be some backstory there. Why Irene can constantly face Valak and not sort of
They're like angels.
have any issue
And
with
the
him.
devil is scared of angels.
Anyway, there's this whole scene where Irene's basically running through the hallway trying to escape from Valak. And eventually Sister Juana grabs Irene in like a corner of the hallway and sort of tells her to go to the chapel to pray, seeing that Valak is stalking them both. So Irene hurries to the chapel alone and comes across the body of another nun covered with a sheet. Irene lifts the sheet and shockingly finds Sister Juana. Irene immediately starts praying upon finding the body and is told by another nun to keep her eyes forward and continue praying no matter what happens.
Yeah, all the nuns come in. They're kind of like a squad. Like a freaking army squad. They're here to kill the demon. Little did they know, the evil swings the door open and literally knocks all of them out. He pushes them. One gets hit to the pillars. One gets hit to the benches. Everyone's kind of messed up and they are
It's
damaged.
also kind of important to note that, like, in the circle of perpetual adoration that they were in, Irene was, like, in the center. And she clearly stuck out because she has a white robe.
Yeah.
All the rest of the nuns are dressed in black, meaning Irene hasn't taken her vows yet. Again, she's a novitiate. That kind of also is a big... I would say like a bullseye almost for Valak. He's able to see exactly which one he can sort of manipulate and try to take out.
It then cuts to Father Burke, who's kind of stuck in the Abbey, who's doing his research. He sees his crossword puzzle that he was working on the way here, and one of the answers was deliveries. So he thought to himself, oh, that's a one way to enter, because that is where Frenchie dropped off the nun that was hanging, and that's also where the nuns access to get all the food he drops off. He goes down to the delivery room, and he sees this mummified nun. She's standing up, and she's attacking him.
But then we cut back to Irene, who is again getting thrown around in this chapel. She's basically getting derobed. Like, Valak is basically ripping the back of her clothes off and sort of scratching on her back during the prayer.
Kind of draws, yeah.
Just kind of, I guess, trying to distract her from her prayer. So, as they said, constant vigil, perpetual adoration was sort of a thing that keeps off the evil. So his main goal is to try to get her to stop. She hears a banging on the door and somehow opens it to see Frenchie and the father and explains to them that she has been praying with the other nuns.
And he draws a star on her because she did a good job because she would not stop praying. She opens the door. She's like, guys, look, me and these nuns are hurt. We need some help. But then everyone comes in and they do not see any of the nuns. So kind of going back to when Irene first saw the first nun, like Sister Juana, she was the only one who has seen these guys. It's kind of like her visions are helping her out.
And I guess throughout the movie, you never really notice that because you're kind of thinking from the fact that Frenchie and Father are both men. And it is sort of a monastery or an abbey where nuns are. So it's not typical for men to frequent those places in the first place. So you mainly see Irene communicating with the nuns, interacting with them. And we don't see the other two ever really talking to anybody else. But we never really take note of it until now when she basically gestures backwards towards the nuns. And we cut to the scene and we see absolutely no one there.
Yeah,
So,
no one was there except the dead body.
literally,
She was still cloaked.
as she goes to uncover the body to kind of show them like, hey, look, this is sort of a fresh body, she finds the mummified nun, basically confirming the fact that none of this actually ever happened or it was all in her head or another vision. She kind of quotes, this place is no longer holy.
Well, yeah, the nun gets up. She gets up and she starts attacking them. Father Burke, he does some magic tricks. He basically waterboards her with the cross and prayer.
And holy water.
And holy water. So
He literally sets on fire. Like, the body sets on fire when he starts doing that. He tries to subdue her by pressing a cross on her forehead, and then the body just blazes up.
So he Christ boards her.
And then Frenchie just starts firing around to kind of make sure everything's
Just to make sure they're dead.
Somehow, in all of this madness, they discover that Sister Victoria's death was not in fact a suicide, like we mentioned before, but a sacrifice to ensure that the evil could not steal her soul or possess her, and kind of use her for evil. So the three contend that they need to close the gateway before they face the same fate. Irene mentions that she basically needs to take her vows first, and recognizes that her visions are a gift from God. So somehow she becomes a nun in the midst of all this. I thought there was a lot more involved with becoming a nun. Like, you can't just say you're going to take your vows and then take them in the middle of this decrepit abbey, but
She did it.
she did it. Then they use the key relic to unlock the door. Again, Mary points the way, like the third time in this movie, as a statue of Mary this time. This time is a statue of Mary, and she's pointing her little finger. I think she reflected the light into this sort of hidden keyhole in the door.
Technology.
That's what I was thinking. Like, did they use the key? I'm not sure. I don't think they used the key relic before. I think
It just
this is what
reflected,
the
yeah.
key relic was used for. I don't think she used it to open
I think
the
she just
goddamn-
opened the door
Yeah, I
before
think she
just to
just
see what was
opened the
inside.
door before. But this is where they find that hidden keyhole. That's why I think Sister Victoria was so adamant on protecting this key relic. Because it holds something very holy. Inside, they find a vial with the blood of Jesus Christ. Irene wears the blood of Christ. As Frenchie mentions, only a true bride of Christ can wear an item so holy.
Okay, yeah. Father Irene and Frenchie head back to the hallway where they split up. I don't know why they split up again. I'm not rewatching this movie to find out.
We've watched
But
this movie like 10 times
They
already.
split up for some reason. All they have to do is go to the door. God ends here, but they split up. Irene has a faceless son following her, but she hurriedly lights a candle and comes around into another candlelit room. And the candles appear to blaze in the shape of a pentagon. Conspiracy?
I think not.
All of the nuns are faceless.
As she looks up, yeah.
As she looks up. So I think that's supposed to represent Valak. I think she kind of took forms of these nuns.
Like, I think mostly like demonic sort of thing. Like, she's using God, the most holy thing, and nuns, the most sort of holy thing in Christianity, to kind of mock it and use them as her slaves or whatever to do her dirty work.
Father Burke, he's kind of doing, he kind of has the same thing with the faceless nuns. He's getting chased around them, so what he does, he drops some oil in the shape of a cross from his lantern and he burns it on fire. So the faceless nuns cannot cross a
sort of holy
cross.
ground, yeah.
So another thing, if you guys have some demons following you, burn your house down, but do it in a cross form.
That's bad advice. So Frenchie hears his name coming from a room. He hurries in to investigate, thinking it's Irene or Father Burke, somebody calling on him, but instead he's suddenly attacked by a demon, possessing Irene's body within the pentagon. So basically Irene is possessed. Now she's a sister because she took her vow, so she's a possessed nun.
She's a possessed
I don't
nun.
know.
It's a fusion.
Maybe that was part
Dragon
of the
Ball
plan.
Z?
Like, maybe he couldn't have possessed her before that, and he possessed her after she became a nun. I'm not sure.
Frenchie did have some holy water on him, as
Somehow.
one should always have.
Convenience, yeah.
Everyone should have holy water on them, and he sprays it. And then, Valak's kind of crying. Yes, you can
We
see
see
by her.
Val. He starts choking Frenchie and attempts to like push him under the water and drown him. And then we again turn to Father Burke, who's being strangled by a snake. Valak, the Marquis of Snakes, kind of wrapped around his neck. Valak emerges from the water behind Irene and begins to choke and drown her as well.
Oh, yeah,
So
everything's
Valak's just
flooded.
basically going at everybody. Yeah,
Everything's
everyone's
flooded again.
just like screwed at this point.
But this is the same room, though, that in the backstory they're talking about where the Duke did the whole ritual for the demon to come out.
With the
it
gateway?
was in this room. And you see Valak coming out from the gateway. And he's going towards Irene, who's just she's kind of shocked from all this. Poor girl just got possessed and lied to by like 6 nuns. They're all fake. She's been through a lot. But Valak comes in and chokes her because she has the relic. And as Valak is choking her, Father Burke and Frenchie, they try to gather her attention.
So Valak basically is looking at Irene and he sees that she has like sort of this vessel, but he notices, I don't know if he notices anything because he's kind of a demon, but we notice that like glass is smashed and the vial of the blood of Christ is basically missing. So that's kind of like
Got
preluding
too cocky.
to the fact that Irene actually she kind of held the blood in her mouth and spat it right into Valak's face to sort of,
Cam shot.
I guess kill him.
Valak can't take it. And apparently once one blood of Jesus Christ goes into water, that whole
Thing becomes holy water, yeah.
I didn't know that rule. That's good to know.
I don't know, but it begins to kind of wash away Valak.
Kind of like a toilet when you flush it.
Yeah, literally. Like,
it's like a crack in the ground.
Valak just
pressed
fell
the flush.
through the gateway. Like, somehow just went through the gateway under the water.
Jesus, take the toilet.
And it was all done. Like, from there was no, like, questions asked.
And
Irene laid unconscious where Frenchie dives in to perform CPR. Irene sputters for a few seconds, waking up and thanking Frenchie, who now introduces himself to Irene as Maurice, you know, for saving her life. I don't know. They had to, like, end it on a personal note, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
the fact that
Frenchie-
he kind of opened up and, like, said his real name to her.
On a first name basis.
And he saved her life.
Oh, and the snake, I don't know why, but he bites Father Burke's eye. Now he's blind in one eye.
Yeah.
Now he's cool.
Yeah. We then kind of flash forward to the present. Like, I don't know how they get out the Abbey. I don't know what else happened after that. But we flash forward to the present where Irene is able to give the nuns a proper burial, basically making the grounds of the Abbey holy once
again.
more. And then Irene and Frenchie are sort of making small talk, where Maurice actually mentions, you know, Maurice mentions that he wants to be a tomato farmer. So we see Maurice sort of casually scratching his neck while making that sentiment.
It's a mosquito bite.
As we look at his neck, we see a small upside-down crucifix appear on the nape of his neck. Finally, leave off with a flash forward to Ed and Lorraine Warren discussing a disturbing possession they're working on, getting our final glimpse of Maurice in the background.
Yeah, and then this is actually where, I'm not sure, is this Conjuring 2? Where we first see the nun?
I think that's the Conjuring 2, yeah.
But I think they use the same kind of flashback scene there. Lorraine is actually doing some sort of spiritual healing on this tomato farmer, French Canadian, Maurice, kind of foreshadowing it. And then this is kind of where Lorraine actually first gets introduced to Valak through Maurice.
Yeah. That's like her
That's how they
first
tied it all in.
interaction. And that's why we think Lorraine and Irene might be somehow related, because they, again, have this thing that sets off Valak. Like, I don't know why Valak comes for them the way he does, but he can never seem to touch them anyway.
Yeah, he can never touch Lorraine and Irene. Something about that bloodline related to God.
I think we see why in The Nun too. We won't spoil that one because that one just kind of came out recently. So
that was The Nun.
I want to talk about my plot hole.
Oh, talk about your plot holes.
So my whole plot hole thing that I had, like, from the beginning was, why was Frenchie even there delivering food if nobody has been living there for so long? Like, why was he even there delivering food? Why were Sister Victoria and the older nun there in the first place if it's made out to be that the Abbey was literally abandoned for so long? Like, at the end, they make it seem like, oh, no one's ever lived here in a long time. Why was the mummified nun then laying in the chapel? Why didn't Sister Victoria and, like, the older nun even think to bury that nun? It's kind of like a big plot hole.
We don't know how the nun got in that chapel that they were praying in. That was kind of a plot hole. I was like, where did that come from?
No, but, like, even so, how would the older sister and Sister Victoria just leave the body there?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Like, why? Wouldn't they have cleaned that up, or wouldn't they have,
that's
like,
where they're praying.
Notified someone? Like, and then also, why is Frenchie delivering food to, like, Sister Victoria and the older nun? And why are they not, like, interacting with the outside? Yeah, like, why are they not asking for help from the outside?
The first time help was called was when Frenchie saw the nuns.
Yeah.
So,
and that stirred conversation from the Vatican, just from that conversation. So you would think, like, a gateway to hell would have had the attention of the Vatican way beforehand. That's kind of crazy.
So do better, Conjuring people.
Not to insult the Conjuring universe, but it's a bit of a plot hole. It's a good movie. What are your thoughts? We'll go to the thoughts section now that we've summarized
when I first saw it, I thought it was a bunch of too many jump scares. It's just kind of, and the plot points, as we said, you can kind of tell what's going to happen. Like the bells ringing.
It's a bit predictable.
It was pretty predictable. We kind of knew what was going to happen, and they kind of tied themselves. Well, I thought the story would have been a much better backstory to the nun, because the nun was such a scary character in The Conjuring 2. So kind of taking that, it was underwhelming. By itself, I would give it I would say maybe like a 5 out of 10. Mm-hmm. But in relationship to kind of how much hype this movie had and how much it had to do and it didn't deliver, I would bring it down to a 4. I think it's a good movie, but it could be better.
I agree. I don't know if Maybe I'll put a number on it at the end. But compared to The Conjuring 2, so The Conjuring 2, I did a little bit of research real quick, but Conjuring 2 was released in 2016 and The Nun was released in 2018. So The Nun was basically trying to explain the whole backstory of like this extremely evil character in The Conjuring 2. And The Conjuring 2, I feel like did so much of a better job at making the nun and Valak scary because like when I saw The Conjuring 2, that's what actually scared me. It was like the whole character of Valak and like it was very very well done in my opinion. And then we kind of get to the nun which you know time-wise becomes before The Conjuring 2. And it just seems a little cheesy at some points, like the way they introduce the nun or Valak multiple times throughout. Like it's just a lot of jump scares, like you said. It's not nothing really building on her story. We kind of like the whole story was pretty much just the World War II bombing. That whole thing that happened there. There's no
that's the only reason why Valak escaped.
yeah, there's no other like reason why or like any sort of backstory of like who is Valak.
Why the Duke? That was the backstory, like the Duke doing
the Duke,
it.
yeah.
But they it's like this middle part of the story.
There's like a big chunk of time I feel like is missing. Like, what is Valak? Is he a fallen angel? Like, is this an actual demonic entity? Like,
or is that the demon?
How did it get that way? Like, and why does he seem to be challenging Sister Irene and Lorraine so much? It seems like just a lot was left out. It seemed like a lot of fluff. I mean, it's a good standalone movie for sure, but in relation to the Conjuring universe, I feel like it didn't live up to the hype. Like in terms of The Conjuring 2 and the other movies. It's a good movie. I'd give it like 4.5 or a 5. But the nun is like one of my favorite characters in the Conjuring universe, and I feel like this movie didn't do her justice. And it was supposed to be her movie. So, yeah.
Amen.
Let us know down below if you'd like us to talk about the rest of the Conjuring universe movies, or if there's another newer movie you want us to talk about. We're doing The Nun and the Conjuring universe because we like those movies a lot, and we've seen them a lot, even though we had to watch this one like 3 more times to understand it properly. But let us know. We can do a more recent movie too. We watch a lot of horror movies. That's why we started this channel. So
yes,
please let us know down below in the comments.